Hey guys, this is Gregory Bennett. Hopefully your day is going well. I just wanted to have a quick talk about the best neighborhoods in Baltimore to invest in. I often get the question, what are the best neighborhoods? What are the best zip codes? And even though I'm primarily a Washington, D.C. investor, Prince George's County investor, I do have own a small portfolio of properties in Baltimore. I own those properties in Baltimore because Baltimore is actually the number one residential rental area in the United States. And it's that because you can buy low and rent high. You get a better return on investment there. Um, your cash flow is a lot better in Baltimore compared to DC. The appreciation is not as good as like DC and Prince George's County, Maryland, but you can buy more properties and it's just a lot easier to buy there. And the properties are plentiful. The job market will almost double in the next 10 years. 40% of the workforce rents. It is a college town, and a lot of the college students are renting. There's a 2 hour, I mean, not 2 hour, there's a 2 year wait for voucher holders. And so there's a high demand for rentals. And so that's why I invest in Baltimore because I can buy low, and I'll talk about this later. But I try to buy where I'm all in at about 100,000 between what I buy for. I try not to buy for more than 80,000. I try not to put more than $20,000 into the property. So I'm all in at about 100,000. After repair value is somewhere in the neighborhoods that I buy in are about 200,000. And so I like to buy with about $100,000 in equity going in, buying the property right. That's really where I make my money in Baltimore is when I go in and buy the property right. And then I like to start off with my cash flow somewhere between $600 and $1,000 a month positive cash flow. I generally use the Burr method in Baltimore, where I buy the property right, generally either using my own cash, a line of credit, or a hard money lender, and then renovate the property. And again, I try to stay below $20,000. And then I rent the property. I only rent to voucher holders, Section 8, and then I refinance. It's a lot easier to refinance in Baltimore and get the numbers you want. And so in order to refinance, especially using the Burr method, the issue with Burr is the appraisal. You want to make sure that you're all in at either 70% or less of the after repair value. As an example, if after repair value is 200,000, 70% of the 200,000 is 140,000. And so the lender is going to lend somewhere around 70% of ARV, after repair value. If your credit is 800 or above, they may lend at 80%, but let's just use 70%. And so using my formula, how I like to buy houses in Baltimore, I want to be all in at less than 140,000, where, like I said earlier, I'm all in at 100,000. And so if after repair value is 200,000, the appraisal goes out and it's about 70% of after repair value 140. Not only am I able to pay myself back, pay back the lender, if I put any of my own money into the deal, I get that back too. And so it's perfect. Those of you who are familiar with the Burr method, BRRRR, Baltimore is perfect for that. The numbers just work tremendously. And so for those reasons is why I invest in Baltimore. When you're looking at Baltimore, you're looking at different neighborhoods. And so we classify the neighborhoods as A, B, C, and D neighborhoods. Your A and B neighborhoods are your better neighborhoods in terms of shopping, transportation, safety, things like that. But those neighborhoods are a little more expensive. Your C minus D neighborhoods are your neighborhoods where it's not as safe, transportation is not as good, the amenities are not as good. There's board ups, And so we try to stay away from, especially the D neighborhoods, we try to stay away from. And actually, the sweet spot for me is sort of the C neighborhoods, B minus to C plus, because in Baltimore, the B minus to C plus neighborhoods um, are the ones where I can be all in at about 100,000, where I can buy for about 70 or 80,000, make renovations at about 20,000, all in at less than 100,000. Again, ARV is 200,000, and then I can rent and get a really good positive cash flow. In terms of the renovations, there was a time where I put in full HVAC systems, really, really nice finishes, and I still do, but I've cut back on some of those renovations to keep my renovation costs low. And so let's talk about the neighborhoods. Let's talk about the neighborhoods. And if you guys have any questions, this is going to be a short podcast. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment section. Also, let me put a banner up for my IG. You can follow me at Greg Bennett Invest, and then you can also subscribe to my YouTube, Wealth Building with Gregory Bennett. And so let's talk about neighborhoods. I get these questions asked all the time about the neighborhoods. I will say to you guys that every neighborhood, every zip code is a good zip code. Every zip code is a good zip code. Almost every zip code in Baltimore has your A, B, C, and D neighborhoods. Almost every zip code, whether you're on the east side or the west side, you're going to have A, B, C, and D neighborhoods. These are the neighborhoods, lots of neighborhoods. One thing that I like about Baltimore is the neighborhood city. Like DC, like New York City, lots of different neighborhoods with its own character. But properties that I've bought in that are the best for me, that are sort of B minus C neighborhoods where I can buy and be all in at 100,000, or Brooklyn, which is 21225. The Brooklyn area. I bought a property in Brooklyn for 25,000. Lady called me. Her husband had passed away. She had a 4-bedroom row house, interior unit. My preference is interior units, less maintenance. And she wanted to sell the property. And so I went and took a look at the property. She was an absentee owner. And I went and took a look at the property. I said, how much do you want for it? And she said 40,000. And I said, well, I was thinking 20,000, but I will buy it for 25,000. And long story short, she said yes. So I paid cash, bought the property for 25,000. Tenant already in there. Tenant, which I don't normally do, but the tenant was paying market rent. So I just went for it and I paid cash. She agreed. We signed the contract. That was probably, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. And I still have that property with the tenant, in that same tenant in that property. And so Brooklyn is good. Brooklyn, you can be all in at less than 100,000. And you can buy with about $100,000 in equity. You can cash flow. I cash flow at about $1,000 a month positive on my property in Brooklyn. Edmondson Village on the west side, 21229. I bought, and I still own a 2-unit there, where I bought right on Edmondson Avenue. Now, Edmondson, like I said, a lot of the zip codes have D neighborhoods, B and C neighborhoods. Edmondson Village, 21229, they have that. The further you go up towards the county, kind of the better it gets, and less board ups. And so that's why I'll say board ups. And so when you have a neighborhood or street that has a lot of board ups, that's what I would consider, in most cases, a D neighborhood. I stay away from there because I know the end buyer, the end tenant, they don't want to live close to board up. So on Edmondson Avenue, I bought this property. It's a 2-unit that I purchased. Again, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, still have that property. So Edmondson Village, both of those two properties have worked well for me. Bel Air Edison on the east side, 21213. I actually purchased that property at an auction. I purchased that property, I think it was hubzoo.com, where I bid on that property. I bought that property in Bel Air Edison for $40,000 at the auction, online auction. Must have probably put in about 25,000. So was all in at about 65,000. The house, and I've had that for about 5 or 6 years, is probably worth about a little over 200,000 now. So I got a ton of equity in that property. I do rent that one out to a voucher holder. I've had 2 voucher holders in that property. And so that property is going well. Bel Air Edison, I highly recommend that area on the east side, 21213. Karen is mentioning Dundalk. And so I believe, Karen, I didn't write Dundalk down, but I own another 2-unit in Dundalk. I want to say Dundalk, somebody correct me. The zip code is 212. I want to say, I want to say 20, but somebody look that up for me. Put it in the comment section on Dundalk's zip code. I bought that one. I bought that one from a wholesaler in Dundalk. Actually, 2 properties in Dundalk, which is not in the 21222, which is Dundalk is not in the city. It's actually in the county. But so I own 2 properties in Dundalk. One is a 2-unit. Bought that property bought one from a wholesaler, and bought the other one at the courthouse steps, the Baltimore County courthouse steps. Bought the 2-unit for $50,000. Bought that years ago as well, and I bought the one at the auction. I believe for 50 or 60,000. I bought the other one, and so those are good areas as well. Dundalk, Charles Village. Now, Charles Village is 21218. I bought a property there on Guilford Avenue. Charles Village is really good. I can't remember. I believe I bought that property from a wholesaler as well, but I can't quite remember. And so I renovated that property and rented it out. I couldn't decide whether I was going to flip that property or rented it out, put it on the market for both, and the renter came first. And so Charles Village stretches up to 21218, goes from North Avenue all the way up to Johns Hopkins University. And so great area, really, really good area if you can buy in there. I bought that property at the time for about $50,000. I would imagine you're buying, and I'm closer to North Avenue than I am to Johns Hopkins University. Johns Hopkins University is definitely an A neighborhood. Where I am is around a C+B neighborhood. I would imagine there in Charles Village now, on average, you're buying for around maybe 150, 200 by now, because it's Charles Village is really appreciated. But Charles Village is a really great area, and they're doing a lot of revitalization up and down the North Avenue corridor. So those properties there are really going to appreciate. They are appreciating. Right behind my property, they're building brand new townhouses, and so that area is good. Washington Village / Pigtown, 21230. A lot of people know where Pigtown is. It's closer to downtown. Actually, from Pigtown, you can walk downtown. But that's a good area. A lot of my investors, my students, have bought in Pigtown. And again, it's accessible to downtown, but you can buy low and rent high there. Patterson Park. I recently purchased a property in Patterson Park. One of my investors that I coach recently purchased a property in Patterson Park. Patterson Park is one of the best, in my opinion, C plus neighborhoods where you can buy low, rent high, little to no board ups, little to no board ups in Patterson Park. I know some investors that that's all they do is buy in Patterson Park. Um, for me, coming from DC area, Prince George's County area, it's a little further up than I prefer um, in East Baltimore. But Patterson Park is really good. It's a really good neighborhood. Reservoir Hill. So you got Reservoir Hill, you've got Bolton Hill, you got Jewett Hill Park. That whole area. I almost bought a 6-unit building about 2 years ago in that area. That's 21217. Patterson Park is 212. I believe it's 21231. But that Reservoir Hill area is historic. It's a really good area to invest. Lots of 4-unit buildings, 6-unit buildings. One of my real estate agents flipped a couple of properties there in Reservoir Hill. Union Square is really good. Two of my agent investors purchased in Union Square. I don't have the zip code for Union Square, but they purchased there in Union Square. So, in my opinion, when we're talking about cash flow, we're talking about the entry level is really easy in terms of the price, affordability. Those neighborhoods, for me, are the best. Now, there's other areas as well. If you guys know some other areas, please put them in the comment section. I didn't name all of them. Like Uptown is up and coming, and others. But go ahead and put them in the comment section. And if you know the zip codes, I'll read them off as well. Now, when we talk about A to B neighborhoods, I really haven't purchased properties in A to B neighborhoods in Baltimore. Those properties are going to be a little more expensive. They're still going to cash flow. And to be honest, they're going to appreciate a lot better than the neighborhoods that I just talked about. And I'll give you a handful of neighborhoods. And some of my investors have purchased in these neighborhoods in Baltimore. And so if you want to spend a little more money, have better amenities, voucher holders do live there, but you have a lot of great market rate tenants that live there, workforce, neighborhoods. You want to go with these neighborhoods. Fells Point is 21231. Is a great neighborhood. Lots of nice restaurants there in Fells Point. I frequent Fells Point often. I've just never bought any properties in Fells Point. Canton, which is right next to Fells Point. Again, nice neighborhoods. You're right downtown, right by the water. Actually, one of my agent investors have purchased properties in Canton. I think he bought a 4-unit building in Canton. And so that's a really great neighborhood that really appreciates great cash flow. Fed Hill, again, right downtown, walk to the harbor, great market rate tenants. You do find Section 8 tenants there. You're going to pay a little more for Fed Hill, but you're going to get great appreciation. A little less cash flow initially, but if you're looking more for appreciation, then Fed Hill, Fells Point, and Canton are great. Hamden is up and coming. I actually, in my notes, I put a star by Hamden. Hamden is the #1 neighborhood in Baltimore that's appreciating. It's appreciating. It's up and coming. The whole dynamic of Hamden in terms of restaurants and transportation and things like that has really changed, and so for the better. And so Hamden, in my opinion, oh, Karen beat me. I didn't see that, Karen. Karen beat me to it. And so Hamden is actually the #1 neighbor. I read an article this morning about best areas in Baltimore. Hamden was #1. because it's still very, very affordable, but it's appreciating at a high rate. It's gentrified. I mean, people are moving into the neighborhood. I've been there a few times to have lunch there. And so Hamden is the number one area for investors, 21211. So 21211. We've got Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon would be your A to B. It's going to be a little more expensive. 21202, Mount Vernon, a little more expensive, but great for investing, long-term investments, workforce neighborhoods where people are going to work. Again, in Baltimore, 40% of the workforce rent. They do a lot of renting in Mount Vernon and in Locust Point. And so Locust Point is 21230. And just like all the other neighborhoods in Baltimore, it's a little on the higher side. But when I say on the higher side, the median price for a house in Baltimore is a lot lower than the national average. And so when I say a higher price, you can still buy in Locust Point for 300,000. And they cash flow. Those properties cash flow. Great neighborhoods. Karen mentioned Union Square. And so these are just a snapshot. Again, what I like about Baltimore is its neighborhoods, the different neighborhoods and the character of each neighborhood. But as far as being an investor, you can buy low, rent high. You can do the Burr method, get all your money, refinance. Even in this market where interest rates are a little higher, as long as you stay below the 70% threshold, you're fine. You get all your money back and you keep going. I know lots of investors, including myself, that want to build big portfolios of properties in Baltimore. Cost of entry is just really, really low. A few comments on here. I said, okay. I'm going to, okay, good, Kim. Are any of the B2C neighborhoods appropriate for vouchers? And so absolutely, Ronald. So honestly, all the neighborhoods I just mentioned are good for voucher holders. And so I've got voucher holders in Brooklyn, in Edmondson Village, in Bel Air Edison, Charles Village, and in Patterson Park. But even some of what I would consider kind of B neighborhoods, the ones I mentioned, they're great for voucher holders. Baltimore is a voucher holder city. There's a 2-year waiting list to get on the list. And there's a myth about voucher holders that they're going to get into your property and tear it up. That can't be further from the truth. That's not true. They've changed the program where they have better counseling, where the program, they get inspections every year, and the inspectors give the voucher holders a list of things to do every year, and if they don't do it, they get kicked out the program. They do not want to get kicked out the program because it's going to take another 2 years to get back into the program. And so they do not tear your property up. They do not tear it up. It's a myth. It is not true. One other thing about voucher holders, you guys, is throughout any recession, throughout any pandemic, throughout anything, you're going to get your money on the first of the month, every month. So I highly, highly, highly recommend voucher holders. Again, Baltimore is a voucher holder city. I just gave you guys a bunch of zip codes, a bunch of neighborhoods. My advice would be to do what I did. I initially focused on one area, which was Bel Air Edison, 21213, only because I was recommended by another investor that was one of the best areas, and it's ranked true. And so what I did was I went to the auction sites. I went online on the MLS, and I just looked up properties in that zip code that I thought might be good investment opportunities. Went out and looked at them, found the one property on Lake Avenue, and it was an auction property. And this particular auction property was vacant, and they actually had access. They had a lockbox. Went looked at it, stayed up all night. The bidding went all night long, it seemed like, and I bid on the property, and I won. And I bought that property for 40,000. Bought a few other properties in Bel Air Edison, and then I started to familiarize myself with other neighborhoods. And so sometimes, as a matter of fact, like yesterday, I'll just drive neighborhoods and just, and then I'll see a property and then I'll run the comps and see, I'll run the rental comps and I'll run the after repair value comps to see if it's a good deal. And then, I have my financing in place, and then I pull the trigger. And so that's the biggest thing for you guys, is to learn these neighborhoods and then find a deal, have your financing in place, have your contractors in place, because all these properties need some type of work. Baltimore, like DC, is an older city, and that's why you can, buy really low and sell high or rent high, and you can really build wealth in a city like Baltimore. And so that's what I recommend. All right, you guys, didn't want to keep you long. I get the question all the time: what are the better neighborhoods? What are the zip codes? There you go. And so this is my opinion. There's others. You just have to do your own research. But I do believe that this is a good start. I'm very familiar with all the neighborhoods that I just mentioned. I like going to the neighborhoods and finding the best restaurants. So I'm somewhat of a foodie. And so, but it allows me to get to know the neighborhoods. And so get to know the neighborhoods. One last question: is the city of Baltimore voucher program different than the county? Yes, it's a different program. It's definitely a different program. And so, for example, the properties that I own in Dundalk, I can't go to Baltimore City's voucher program and get tenants there. I can't do that. I've got to go to the Baltimore County. I forget. I want to say it's in Towson. I think it's in Towson, in Baltimore City. In Baltimore County. All right, you guys. Again, follow me at Greg Bennett Invest on IG. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Wealth Building with Gregory Bennett. I'm going to give you guys more valuable information. Do not be afraid of Baltimore. DM me if you guys have any questions whatsoever. Baltimore, again, I'm more of a DC, Prince George's County investor, but I do have a small portfolio of properties in Baltimore. I've kind of self-taught myself the neighborhoods. I'm no expert in Baltimore, but I probably can answer all your questions. Baltimore, probably over the last 6-7 years, I've really really focused on Baltimore, so I know it somewhat. I'm probably better than I think. All right, you guys, take care. God bless. Looking forward to giving you guys more valuable information. Take care.